In this video, we're going to be discussing erosion and deposition in a stream and how that might change the stream over time. So first, let's discuss the differences between a straight channel and a curved channel. So we see a stream here, and we see that there is a straight portion where there is no curve, and then we see a meander in a stream, and that's basically just the portion that's curved. And the erosion and deposition in the straight portion of the stream is going to be very different than the erosion and deposition in the curved portion of the stream. So let's look at how those are different. So first, let's talk about the straight channel shape. So you can see this is a top view. So this is a straight portion of the river. And this is a cross section showing the inside portion of the river. So when a channel is straight, the maximum velocity occurs right at the center of the stream, just below the water, because that's where there's going to be less friction, right? There's friction all along the outside, and that's going to slow the velocity. And there's also some friction with air on the top of the water, so it'll be flowing slightly slower towards the top. So this is where the fastest water is moving. And this top view also shows that. Wherever we have the longer arrows, that shows the faster velocity. And the smaller arrows show the slower velocity because of the friction with the sides of the stream. So faster velocity is going to equate to more erosion happening. Erosion is where sediment is picked up and moved elsewhere. So wherever the water is moving the fastest, it's going to have the greatest ability to then move sediment or erode sediment. So we're going to get more erosion in the center of the stream and more deposition towards the outside, because when water slows down, it deposits or leaves behind the sediment that it's carrying. So the slower the velocity, the less sediment that it can carry. So it's going to deposit towards the outside and it's going to erode in the center. So over time in this portion of the stream, we're going to see that the stream channel will become deeper in the center because that's where erosion is happening. So let's talk about the curved channel shape. Now remember, a curve in a river is called a meander or a bend. So when there's a curve or meander in the stream, the water flows fastest on the outside. So here's the outside of the meander, and here is the inside. So we see that water is flowing fastest on the outside. Now when the water comes around the bend, it wants to continue in that direction. So it's flowing very fast, moving in this direction, and it hits the outside of the bend and curves. So now here again is the outside. You see how it switches sides, outside of the bend. This is the outside of the bend. So the water is flowing fastest here, and it's flowing fastest here. And because it's flowing fastest here, we're going to get erosion. It's going to have a greater ability to pick up sediment. So we're going to get erosion here. Now this is the inside of the bend, and so is this. So we're going to get deposition here, because as the water slows down to make this bend, it's going to deposit some of its sediment. So over time, we're going to erode this side more and more, and this side is going to get deposition. So let's watch an animation of how this happens. See how the water is moving through as it hits the outside. It's cutting away. So the river is actually moving in this direction over time because there's more and more erosion happening. And these light tan parts here, this is where sediment is building up because of deposition, because the water is flowing slower here. So these arrows show you here's the outside of the bend. There is faster moving water and more erosion. Inside of the bend, slower moving water, and we get deposition. So the stream will also be deeper underneath the water where there is erosion, that's on the outside, and more shallow where there is deposition, that's the inside of the meander. And that makes sense because as it's moving slower right here, it deposits its sediment and it builds up here. So we get deposition. And then on this side, we get erosion. So this side will be much steeper and it will be deeper on this side than it is on this side. So if we were to look underneath the water and cut away, we would see the stream channel would not have a nice V like you would in a straight channel. It's going to be offset. So the deeper side is going to be on the outside of the curve where there is erosion, and the more shallow side is going to be on the inside where there is deposition. Now, over time, a stream is going to change the way that it looks because of where there is deposition and erosion. So when we have a very youthful river, we have a very straight channel, and it's going to be a narrow V-shaped valley, and it's going to be relatively deep at the center, and that's a youthful river. But over time, we're going to get flooding. That river is going to begin to meander back and forth, and we get a much wider channel, and you see the floodplain on either side. And then as the river becomes very mature, we start to see even more meandering, and maybe even some oxbow lakes have formed. So if we take a look at this animation, it shows us how that actually happens. So as the river is meandering back and forth, it's cutting even further and depositing more on the insides. And over time, the river is going to feel like, well, it's easier if I just cut straight through here, and it's going to cut through that land and eventually cut off these wider areas, and these become the oxbow lakes. It's going to take the path of least resistance, right? It wants to go back to that more straight channel. So it will cut off these areas, and that will create oxbow lakes.